Welcome to the Sam and Joe VA Show, where we teach women just like you how to start and scale a thriving virtual assistant business.
We're your hosts, Sam and Joe, and get ready to have the control, flexibility, and freedom you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to episode 125, Mistakes You're Making When Hiring Team Members.
Now, when you're hiring team members, not every hire is going to be a successful one. So don't kind of beat yourself up when you end up having to let team members go or team members leave. It is going to happen. This is nature of the beast. Joe is an old hat at this, and she's going to share some of her experiences with us. But going through and listening to the mistakes that Joe's made in the past and we see other virtual assistants make when growing their teams will hopefully help reduce the risk of you making unsuccessful hires.
This is going to be a very juicy podcast episode, so I hope you have a pen and paper ready. Because we have got a lot of mistakes that can be made in the hiring process. Like, it's a big deal. There's a lot to think about, and there's a really specific process that we teach over in the Members Club Mastermind. And we put a lot of focus on this kind of content because there's a lot to it.
A lot to it. Now, Joe, you've been doing this for over 10 years now. How many team members have you got right now?
So currently we have 30. So that's a mix of employees and contractors.
And how many mistakes do you think you have made in 10 years? Like ballpark figure.
15 mistakes, I reckon. Bad hires. Yeah.
And that's not bad for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Yep.
Were the majority of those 15 bad hires early on?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So as we've gotten more experienced and we've refined the process, which is all in the Members Club, now we know exactly what to look out for, what our kind of red flags are, what our specific process is, and we never stray from the process anymore. Because it's when you rush the process, you miss out a step, you think, oh no, this person's going to be great, you don't do testing, or any one of those things. If you don't do them, you are greatly increasing the risk of making a bad hire. From experience, hand on heart, it will happen if you miss out steps.
And who needs that added stress of bad hires? Who needs that time and energy going into a bad hire? Like, we can't afford that.
Absolutely not. And the reason why you're hiring is because you're like booked out, or you've got lots of leads coming in, you're needing to grow. Those are all kind of high stress periods of your business. So you don't want to add to that stress by making a wrong hire. And we know that it takes more time and effort upfront to follow all of the steps and go through a full and thorough process when you're recruiting. But it's so worth it in the end.
Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for our epic episode? Get your pens and paper ready. Take notes. So if you are thinking about hiring for the first time, then you need to be listening to this and taking lots and lots of notes. If you've already hired a few team members, but maybe you've made some mistakes and you don't want to make those same mistakes again, once again, take lots and lots of notes. It's going to be a doozy.
Right. So let's start by having a think about the mistakes that can be made when you're preparing to hire a team member.
Starting at the beginning, right at the beginning. Now, you need to be thinking about, I bet you are already thinking about this. You're questioning, who do I hire first? Well, not who do I hire first. What comes first? The new hire or the client work that I'm not going to be able to do myself?
Yeah, because often the mistake is that thinking that you need all of the client work ready and all the clients signed up before you hire. But that puts a lot of added stress onto you and kind of causes you to rush the process because you get a bit
Mm.
desperate to hire when you have all of the work sitting there waiting to go. So our suggestion is to make sure that you realize that you can hire a contractor before you actually have the work in. Contractor could be sitting there waiting, ready to go and set up, so that when you do have that new client come on, it's a direct match right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
All right, the next one. Mistake is that you think you need to hire employees and not start out with contractors.
Yes. Now this is a big one. Now we're not saying that you should never hire employees, but when you are first starting out, there are a range of benefits of going down the contractor route.
Mm,
A
yeah.
lot of them financial.
Yeah, it's just less risk,
Yeah.
right? Employees, there's a lot of legislation, there's a lot of things that you need to make sure you do well and manage them well and follow, all of the rules in your country about holiday pay and sick leave and public holidays and all of that kind of stuff. And it does cost a lot more to hire an employee than to hire a contractor. Now, not based on the hourly rate, you might look at both of them and be like, oh, it's cheaper to hire an employee. But if you understand why clients should hire a virtual assistant rather than hiring an employee, you'll know that the same is true for you in your own business. It is cheaper to hire subcontractors.
Yeah. Your team in order to grow your business.
Yeah. You've got to be clear on exactly who it is that you need to hire so that you can have a look at their CV, have a look at their past experience, see what kind of specialties they have, and make sure that that is the right fit for what you need inside your business. Because one of the other mistakes is not hiring virtual assistants that are specialists too. So we'll go into that a bit more.
You need to think really hard. Do you want this team member? Do you need this team member to be client facing or just doing on your business stuff and supporting you in your own business admin?
Yeah, it's important to get clear on that too. There's lots of considerations that come into deciding what they're going to actually do, what work they're going to do. And we really encourage you to think about hiring a specialist in the specific thing that you need them to do. Whether it's if you want them to do your bookkeeping, then make sure that you get a specialist bookkeeper because they're going to do a much better job. They're going to know all the answers to, things that crop up from time to time. And if you try to hire someone that can cover lots of different bases, you'll find that they'll do kind of an average job of everything. And there'll be mistakes and kind of frustrations that come along with that.
For those agency owners, Joe, that may have already got a few team members on board already who are all generalists and they're all doing great jobs. There's nothing wrong with generalists. We're not saying that there is, but at a certain point, they do need to start thinking about bringing on specialist, client-facing specialist virtual assistants as well.
Yeah. You're going to, with a specialist, you're going to have a better chance of having them in front of clients and doing a great job, saying the right things, providing the right advice, and doing high quality work. A specialist is definitely a great option when you're expanding or growing because you want your reputation to remain intact, right? And these specialists are going to know about the thing that they are a specialist in.
And this means, as the agency owner, you can then start taking that step back from all the client-facing work, and you don't have to be a specialist in every single service that your business is offering clients.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. You don't have to keep up with all of the things that we know when we are a generalist, that it's hard to keep up with everything. So, yeah, that's a really great point.
Exhausting. Now this next one is a mistake that I made when I first started bringing on non-client facing team members, and that was not having my own systems in place, really streamlined systems,
Mhm.
because it was just a bit messy. No one really knew what was going on. I didn't really know what was going on. It meant lots and lots of back and forths that just cost you money as a business owner as well, because the more questions and meetings and stuff you're having to do if you don't have those processes and systems in place, the more expensive it is for you.
Yeah. The other thing it also does when there's a bit of kind of chaos in your business is that subcontractor doesn't feel confident doing work with you because they don't really know what's going on either. So if they're feeling stressed and overwhelmed about like what they're meant to be doing, where they're tracking their time, where they're putting their tasks, where they're like saving work, all of that stuff, that's unnecessary stress for that subcontractor. And it means that they're not going to be fully present and able to do a great job for the client. So,
Yeah, put yourself in your own shoes when you are working for I know that doesn't make any sense. Well, okay, so remember that time, that client that you work for or
Mm,
used to work for, that didn't have anything in place, didn't have those systems in place, and remember how that made you feel, and remember how what the added stress that put on just doing day-to-day tasks for them.
yeah. Yeah.
Put yourself in your own shoes. It just makes no sense whatsoever.
Don't put yourself in other people's shoes, put them in your own shoes. The other thing we have seen a lot of, especially here in the New Zealand VA industry, is virtual assistants who are putting out job ads. They're like posting on social media for a subcontractor, and they're putting in like 5 hours per month of work, 2 hours per week of work. It's not enough. No one wants to just be billing you 2 hours a week, but having to have all of that headspace of like getting trained to work out what to do, to logging into your stuff. Like it's not worth it for them. And whether that's out of like fear of committing a certain number of hours to pay someone and feeling like you might not have the work, like you've got to go all in when you do this. You are going to get a far better caliber of person applying to come on and as a team member if you're kind of suggesting or saying that there is the potential for there to be a lot of work. So when we put out a job ad at Strictly Savvy for a subcontractor, we make sure that we've got some really chunky clients in mind that they can take on. That means that they're doing like, 10, 20, 30 hours per week for us because we know that they then become long term because they're like, wow, this is great. I'm getting a lot of work. I don't need to go and find other work. And they get into our systems and they know how to do things because they're doing it over and over for lots of hours each week. And they can do really great work for a client as well because they have a decent budget to be able to work with that client. Look, what is someone going to do for 5 hours a month? It's not worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm gonna be the
Do
other
it.
little
Do
voice,
it. Do it.
and I think there probably are a small handful of virtual assistants that would take on very small amount of hours, but I don't necessarily think that they're gonna be great virtual assistants.
Mm.
They're probably those that are just starting out and just really just want the work. There'll be a few, but they won't necessarily be very many. And I know without a doubt there's gonna be virtual assistants listening to what you've just said, Jo, and go, "Well, it's okay for Jo to say that because she runs the biggest virtual assistant agency in New Zealand. So of course, I mean, the risk isn't as big for you." Like, were you doing that early on?
Yeah, absolutely. And It's not a risk because you're not making a minimum commitment to the subcontractor. Like,
There
there's
we go.
no
There
minimum
we go.
hours
That's
in the
really
contract.
important. That's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because we have service plans offered out to our clients that start at 10 hours a month and go to, sometimes we do like 45, 50 kind of hours, sometimes more. So there's a chunky, decent amount of work that comes with each of the clients that comes on board. That's why we can then say to a subcontractor, hey, we've got a few like leads in the pipeline. We've got proposals out that for this kind of number of hours. We'd love to get you onboarded so that when we do have some clients confirming, then we can pass them on to you and get you started with them. So we've kind of set that expectation with the service plans that we offer clients, that we know we get that number of hours in and we can pass it on to subcontractors.
So this is another mistake that isn't even in our notes. Another mistake, kind of pre-interviewing, pre-recruitment, is not having your own pricing right, not having service plans paid in advance in place already.
Yeah. And decent sized service plans too.
Yes.
Like, it's so much easier in business when you get commitments from clients on high number of hours rather than little bits and pieces. Those little bits and pieces are just a pain in the ass. If you can, and if you want to be like full and grow your team, then have some decent service plans as your offerings or
Yeah.
packages, like decent packages.
So this leads really well into the next kind of stage, which is
Yeah.
all about rates.
Mm-hmm.
Take a deep breath, everybody. This is okay. It's good to talk about money.
Yes, it should never be a taboo subject, and it should never be a topic that isn't discussed, whether that's with a client in a discovery call or with subcontractors and team members in the very first kind of initial session or interaction or interview with them. Like, you've got to talk about it.
Yeah. Biggest mistake in terms of rates is
Mhm.
seeing virtual assistants that are afraid to talk about money, rates, expectations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get used to it, guys. You've got to get used to it. You've got to get comfortable.
Mm-hmm. It's business. It is just business. It means that we're in business to make money. And these are very normal conversations to have in a business to business interaction, in a business to team member interaction.
Another thing about rates is you want to, and we mentioned it just before, is having your own kind of pricing in place so you can actually afford to bring on team members. You need to work out that you need to work out the numbers. You need to sit down and figure it all out to make sure that you are making money from every single team member that you bring on.
Absolutely. So this is not the time to be charging your cheap, low rates anymore. If you have any chance of growing a sustainable business, a profitable business, and having any kind of money made from your team members, the whole point of bringing on team members, let's not try and pretend it's something else. You are in the business to make money, and team members make you money. And if you're not charging premium pricing, you're never going to get the caliber of person that you really want to have on your team that's going to do a good job, help continue your great reputation, all of that great stuff.
This is one of the biggest mistakes that we see virtual assistants do, which is not paying their contractors what they're worth and hiring on the rate alone.
Oh, worst mistake ever.
Oh, they're cheap. They're only going to charge me $30 an hour, $25 an hour? That's so cheap. I need them. I'll make so much money from that.
Yeah. Guess what? You won't. And we'll tell you why. And when this is stereotyping and generalizing, right?
Yes.
Those who are charging low rates will do a lesser job, less quality job than those who are charging high hourly rates as a subcontractor. There, I said it.
Yeah, you're gonna
It's true. It's true.
Oh my gosh. Those that are advertising or willing to be paid a very low, almost minimum wage, once they pay their own overheads and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Some virtual assistants are barely making minimum wage. Those that are subcontracting out. It's
Yeah.
crazy, but they do it because they want the work.
Mm.
They're desperate.
Yep.
They don't have their own finances sorted in their own head. They haven't really, they're new to the industry and they don't get that they are going to have their own overheads to pay from that.
Yep. Yep. Hire subcontractors that know their own worth, will do high quality work, and at a decent rate. Like, I feel like I kind of pay in the top-ish range of subcontractor
You
rates.
do. You
Yeah,
do.
there we go. I do.
Yeah, you do.
And it's for a reason, and I can do it because we're charging premium rates to our clients.
So if you were, say, on the internal subcontractor directory that we have here in New Zealand, if you were on that, because you go on there quite a lot and you've hired through there,
Yeah.
and there you did your search for the types of skills that they had, and there were 2 VAs there, and
Yep.
one was charging 40-45 an hour.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say specialist. Say you're looking for somebody that does social media management.
Yep.
One's charging $45 an hour. One's charging 25-30.
Do you know what? I would not even consider or interview or get in touch with the person who is charging $25 an hour. Because, well, we're getting into some really, like, juicy bit now, aren't we? Some admissions. But if we think about, like, this is also what our clients think when they are looking for a virtual assistant as well,
Mhm.
the premium ones who really know the worth of a virtual assistant. So this is my unfiltered, exactly what I think when I see those 2 rates. I think this person doesn't value themselves, isn't confident in the work that they do, and isn't generally a confident person.
Mm.
I want the confident person
Mm.
that knows their worth and is going to probably be better facing in front of clients, be able to talk about hours and updates and budgets and money with clients, because it's part of what I expect from the team. Not to sell the service, obviously, or put up rates or anything, but, like, they need to talk about budget. They need to say, "We're running out of budget. We need some more hours,"
Mm.
and
Mm.
not shy away from those conversations. So I'm gonna choose the one that goes with the higher rate to be interviewed and take them through the process and see if they're the right fit.
I love this. This is gonna be one of my favorite podcast episodes this year, I think. Okay, so here's another question for you, Jo Jensen. For those agency owners here in New Zealand, because if we're talking about that subcontractor directory listing,
Mhm.
who are now freaking out after hearing what you've just said and just gone, "Jo, what are you doing? All of those subcontractor VAs on there, they're now gonna put it at their prices, and I
Good
don't
on
wanna
them.
be. I don't wanna be paying that much. I can't afford to be paying that much."
If that's what you're thinking, then you need to put your prices up. You are not charging premium prices, and you are not putting yourself out there as a premium virtual assistant agency.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Alright.
Okay. Ah,
Should we move on?
I'm sure we've offended some of you.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, because if we've offended you, then get uncomfortable and start making some decisions that better position you as a subcontractor or better position you as an agency hiring subcontractors.
Yeah, if you've been listening to this podcast for long enough, you'll know that we are here not to tell you what you wanna hear, but what you need to hear. So
Yeah.
if that made you feel uncomfortable, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It is a good thing, no probably about it, it's a good thing. Okay, enough of the
All right.
rates though, because that is
Okay. We got it.
now.
Everyone's got it, right?
Everyone's got it. Let's move on to the actual interview itself and the mistakes that we see being made in that part of the process?
The biggest mistake is not doing an interview. Whether you are hiring an employee or a subcontractor, interview them. You need to see their face, hear their voice, see what they would be like in a client situation, because essentially that's how they would be showing up. And hearing the answers to your questions that you have. Like, you have to have the interview. It would be a mistake not to. Don't
Yeah, I
just
mean,
leave it on email.
I laughed because I was like, surely not. And I know most of you listening do. Those of you that have already brought on team members, I know that that you already do an interview process of sorts. But I also know firsthand that there are some of you that don't.
Mm.
Now is the time to step up. If you want to be making really successful hires, if you don't want to have to be dealing with a high turnover team members,
Yep.
then this is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So get prepared. Prepare your interview questions. Do it as a proper formal interview, whether that's on Zoom or if they're local, do it in person. Yeah. Get in front
And
of them.
we've got the entire recruitment process inside the Members Club Mastermind in the vault. So if you need that, it's all there for you. Trial tasks.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the entire recruitment process because they can't hide. They can't say what you want to hear. They can't pretend that they're going to be a great team member. They actually have to deliver on a specific task. And I know that there are so many virtual assistants hiring subcontractors who don't do a trial task. And specifically, one agency in mind was hiring team members and then realizing that she was just taking their word for it. So in the interview, they would say, "Oh yeah, I can do this and I can do that and I can do that." Now, the agency owner, they would never lie about what they could or couldn't do, and so they were taking the interviewee at their word, and then hiring them, putting them in front of clients, and then getting some really bad feedback from clients because they can't deliver on what's required.
And it's not always that they're lying. Sometimes it's just they're really unaware that they're bad at what they do. They're just not even
True.
aware of it.
Yeah. 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 So do a trial task. We've got a lot of examples in the Members Club Mastermind Vault. Come up with something that is a way for you to see kind of in a real example of what a client would ask you to do and see how they manage that task and what they deliver on.
Now, there's something else that you do, isn't there? You like to kind of set a task without even knowing that they're setting a task in terms of those that want to apply for roles that you've got in your business.
The trialing starts from the very first interaction that you have with the person applying. And I take note of things like their punctuation, grammar, spelling, in every comms that they have right from the beginning. And inside the job ad, if it's for an employee, or the kind of post that we do for a subcontractor, in there we actually have very specific instructions about what they have to do when they apply. And if they can't follow that very specific instruction, it might be like, email me with something in the subject line, your CV and your cover letter. And if they can't put that in the subject line, then that's an immediate no. They are dismissed from the whole process. And this is why. If they can't read through and follow a specific instruction for you when they're applying on their best behavior, doing their very best job that they can, they will never be able to follow instructions from a client and deliver great quality work. And you'll find that they'll make the same kind of mistake and error with a client.
Yes.
And yeah.
Attention to detail is really, really important in our line of work. And this is something I knew that this is something that Joe has done for years, but I actually experienced it firsthand because we've brought on non-client facing virtual assistants for the VA Foundry to help us out.
Yep.
And so I got to see it firsthand, actually in action, doing its thing. And my mind was blown. The amount of applicants we got, and the high number that just didn't follow the instructions.
Yep.
It was mind-blowing.
It
I'm
is mind-blowing.
guys,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
And when Joe says that's it, if they haven't followed the instructions, it's an immediate no. I can tell you once again firsthand, it was an immediate no. There was no, even there's a couple times I went, oh, but what if, but what? And Joe was like, nope. Line in the sand.
Like it is the best way to pick out, you say the cream of the crop. I don't know where that term comes from, but it's the best and easiest, quickest way to shortlist and pick out the top performers. Yeah.
It works, people. It absolutely works.
Now, if you are hiring someone in a creative kind of specialist, then make sure that you see their portfolio. It might not be that you do a specific trial task for them, but seeing the portfolio is what's really important, so you can see their work.
Yeah. Okay. Expectations.
Mm.
A big mistake we see virtual assistants growing their teams make is not setting clear expectations on what can be invoiced. So, what are the billable hours?
Yeah. We see a lot of virtual assistants get into this trap of not talking about what can and can't be billed to you right up front in this kind of expectation setting. And what they find is that they bring on the subcontractor, and then that subcontractor sends their first invoice, and it has all sorts of other things on there that are not then able to be on charge to the client, like coming to team meetings, which I actually 100% think that you should pay your subcontractors for. But like creating their invoice, updating their timesheet that isn't actually on the client's timesheet, all of their kind of admin in and around, or just like the general communication with you, the comms, the phone calls, all of that kind of stuff. Now, if you've got no expectation around what can and can't be charged to you, then you're going to find that all of your margin is going to be eaten up by non-billable time that you can't recover in on charge to a client's. And it's just going to be a zero-sum game for you. There's no point even having that team member. So get really clear on those expectations right up front.
Yeah, because you could be bringing on a team member that has never done this before. This is new to them as well. They've got no idea. Or you could be bringing on a team member that's done it before, that's worked for another agency, but their expectations might be completely different to yours.
Yep.
So let's avoid any awkwardness. Let's avoid putting your team member, your brand spanking new team member, in a position where she or he doesn't really know what they should be charging for and what they shouldn't be charging for.
Yep.
And doesn't quite feel comfortable enough bringing it up with you.
Yeah. Yep. And get really, really clear on upfront exactly how much time you're going to pay for them to get inducted with you and do the training as well. So we have a specific number of hours that we pay for induction, and that's capped, and they go through our online course teaching them everything that they need to know to be a team member. So we're clear with them right up front before we send them the contract. These are all things that we discuss.
Cool. Another mistake is not getting a firm commitment from your new team member, or this team member that you think that you want to hire, on the number of available hours they have to give you.
Yeah. Really push them on this to give you a clear commitment of the hours, because most of the time the subcontractor is going to want to say, oh yeah, no, I can do lots and lots of hours, X number of hours, and overcommit because they want to get the role and they want to get the work. And so they're going to say things that they think you want to hear, but aren't actually going to be realistic when they take into consideration all of their family commitments and life commitments and things outside of the hours that they're going to do. So make sure you really talk to them about something that's actually achievable and get a commitment together and a discussion, have an understanding together of what is actually going to be their availability.
Because you don't want to be let down, do you?
Mm-mm. We don't want to have a big client and be like, oh, great, this subcontractor said they can do 20 hours. This is going to be perfect. And then they go, oh, actually, I can really only do 15. Well, that's not going to work for either of you. Yeah. Just all this communication, right? Communicating up front and having these discussions and not being afraid to talk about the expectations and the money is just going to avoid those problems down the track.
Okay, I think it's about time to move on to kind of the selection stage now, I think. We'll wind it up and start talking about actually choosing, knowing which of these fabulous men and women that you've interviewed you're actually going to hire.
Mm-hmm. So the mistake is that you hire someone because you really, really like them. They're great. You love chatting with them. You get on like a house on fire. They're so similar to you. That is not the reason to hire that person, and dismiss all of the other things that we've talked about. The test task, the trial task, the figuring out what personality style they are is a really great one. All of the kind of interaction and skills, experience, availability, all of that stuff, that is the important stuff, not whether you like someone or not.
Because I think we can get charmed, can't we? But it's important to remember that we're not hiring a partner, a life partner. We're not hiring a best buddy. This is for your business. You don't have to get on like a house on fire with every single team member you have. Can you imagine? My God, could you imagine a business full of me? Just like clones of me. We'd get nothing done.
Yeah.
We'd get nothing done.
Yeah.
We'd have a laugh.
Yep.
We'd get
If there was a business of just all me, we'd be all just off action taking, not following the process, just doing anything and everything that we wanted at any one moment. Like, it would be chaos. Yeah.
Would you hire me, Jo?
Would I hire? So depends what the role was. Honestly, and that's how you have to think. That's how you have to think about this. You have to match the strengths and weaknesses of that person and what they're really great and passionate about with the exact offering that you have, that, or the work that they'll need to do for a client that you have on board. So yes, absolutely, I would hire you for a very specific role with a very specific type of client, right? And that's how you've got to think about it.
It's good to know I've got a backup plan.
Okay.
All right. This is a good one. This is a good one.
Yep.
Not being able to say no. Like feeling sorry for this person, whether it's because you get on really well with them or you know they really need the work.
Yeah. And they've got a sob story. They've got a like financial issue. They've got like, I really need the work. Like we are actually really lovely people at heart, right? Everyone is just actually so lovely in terms of like wanting to help other people.
Yeah.
That's not a good reason to hire someone. It's a terrible reason to hire someone.
Yeah. Please get comfortable with knowing that for every yes, we want you to come on board conversation that you have with someone, it's likely that you're going to have 2 or 3 thanks so much for interviewing with me, but unfortunately you're not the right fit conversation.
Yep. Get used to letting people down. As hard as that is. Being in business and having a team is absolutely heartbreaking. I've cried multiple times, and every time I've had to let someone go, I've cried. It's horrible. So if you want to avoid that, hire the right person and have that uncomfortableness and saying no at the start.
Yes.
Not later on. It's way worse.
Yes.
Later on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or yeah, let's can't ignore the red flags. Let's
Mhm.
talk about red flags.
Yeah.
So important. Can't ignore them. That gut instinct,
Yeah.
that niggly little voice in the back of your head, it's just going, there's just something, you might not even know why, but there's just something not quite right.
Yeah. I've done this. I have ignored the red flags because I was desperate.
Oh,
I had a client, a big client coming on board, and I was desperate to find someone to match them to. So I rushed the whole process. I missed out steps. I just needed to find someone, and they had shown the red flag signs, and I had pushed them aside and ignored them. So they came to the interview session late, red flag. Um,
late for an interview.
Late for an interview, yep.
Oh,
And there was just there's this niggly in the back of my mind. My gut was just saying something's not right. And I was like, no, no. They had all the excuses under the sun about why they were late or what had happened. And I was like, no, no, okay, no, I'm gonna go with this. I need this person, match them up, had the handover. They came late to the handover. And I was sitting on Zoom with the client. And this is like a really strong, direct, like same personality style as me, real D personality style. And I had to make up something as to why this person was late and why it's okay. And it was not okay. And the things that they said on the Zoom call, it was not okay. It was
that
definitely not
is
okay.
so bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. So, yeah, we had to let that person go. I must have found someone else to go with this client because we ended up doing the work for the client. I don't know how, but like, do not get into a desperate situation because you'll ignore the red flags and it's the worst.
Yeah, there's some particular red flags that you need to be aware of, and if you want to listen to that podcast episode, it's episode number 70.
Mm,
10 red flags you should never ignore when recruiting team members. So have a listen to that after we're finished here.
yeah, from experience. That one is from experience of what you should not ignore. All right. Let's wrap this up with the final thing. Please never, ever, ever make this mistake. Not getting them to sign a contract.
Yes, and make sure it's the right type of contract
Yes.
you're asking them to sign. You
Mhm.
can't just use the contract that you give to your clients and just make a few amendments. It's a completely different ball game, different purpose, different policies. No,
Yep. Well, different clauses. Yeah.
clauses, thank you, that needs to be had
Yeah.
in there. So,
Yeah. And if it's an employee, an employment contract that you've had created by an employment lawyer and you've got everything in there that safeguards you. And contractor, a subcontractor agreement, make sure it is specifically the right type for the right person that you're hiring.
if you need one, we have one inside the Members Club Mastermind Vault, and there is one over, if you New Zealand based, inside the Virtual Assistant Network of New Zealand's website. You can purchase one there.
Yeah. So that's it. I mean, there's a lot of mistakes that you can make. So I hope that has helped you realize what those mistakes are, because we want this to be a really smooth process for you where you take this step by step and you make some really good hires.
Yeah, please don't let this put you off hiring a team. If you've just sat there and gone, shit, like who would even, like, I don't even know if I want to step into this space anymore. Don't let it put you off. Just use this as learnings, as Joe said, to avoid these mistakes.
Yeah. And know that you are probably going to get it wrong multiple times, and that's okay.
Because even Joe does, or used to.
I'm sure we still will again, I'm sure. But take it step by step. take them through a proper recruitment process, and you will absolutely up your chances of having a really great hire. And if this is all very overwhelming for you, but you want to grow your team, then jump on over into the Members Club Mastermind, because honestly, this is step by step templated out for you. And of course, we will be there to support you along the way. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sam and Joe VA Show. If you'd like to find out more, head to the VA Foundry website to check out the Members Club and the amazing resources, training, and coaching.
You can find us at thevafoundry.com.